Hello and welcome back. So we are going to get started on episode 2 of the Her Lullaby Let's Read. So last time we got an ending that admittedly wasn't so great. So we're going to see if we can try to redeem ourselves. So let's go to continue. So now we're back at the decision where we kind of sealed our fate the previous time. So we're going to take a different approach. Let's start by assessing our surroundings first. I mean, it was your regular old run-of-the-mill dark, dank basement as far as I could tell. My vision was still foggy, but I could see that the room was barely lit by a gas lamp near the far wall. The walls and fixtures were rotten wood, all sorts of junk cluttered the floor, none of which seemed useful. I squinted into the darkness behind Toko and the lamp, and saw it terminate about 10 feet with another wall. The only real saving grace was that it didn't smell like shit in the way you'd expect a place like this to smell. That's not to say it was pleasant, it was just pleasantly not shit. Yep, no matter how you looked at it, this was about as cliche as you could get as far as grimy-ass, run-down basement scenery goes. Toko didn't seem all that bothered by it. Then again, given her playful tone thus far, I wondered if anything would bother her. And there she went, just playing with that knife again. Not like there was much else to do here, though, I suppose. And now we can examine the knife again. Yep, it was definitely some kind of ordinary tactical knife. Hard to say it was all that remarkable at all. Just your standard issue, black, dull instrument for various uses in slicing or stabbing. From across the room, it was easy to see Toko's knife looked, at least the very least, a lot shinier, if not more lethal. But I didn't even have to run a finger across the blade to tell you that the one I was holding could likely split hairs. Ugh. So... Oh my god, would you just stop it? Okay. Okay, so I think that's going to recycle a bit of dialogue here. So let's just put our little finger on the control tab. Okay, so now we have an option to throw the knife away. So we're on the right track. I realized what I was about to do and tossed the knife away from me in horror. It landed in the corner of the room, far away from me and Toko. What the hell? I looked up at Toko. She wasn't twirling the knife in her fingers anymore. She held it firmly, staring at me. She looked ready to strike. I suddenly felt vulnerable. I tossed my only weapon away. If Toko wanted to hurt me, I'd have no way to defend myself. Could you toss yours away too, Toko? She didn't move. Please? I realized I was holding my breath and exhaled, trying to look casual, like I wasn't afraid for my life. I watched her. She watched me back. After a few moments, she tossed her knife away over in the corner by mine. Thank you. No problem. You wouldn't have tossed your weapon away if you wanted to hurt me. Yeah, I really don't want to do that. You're awfully rude, you know. You ought to work on your technique. I'm sorry? A beautiful lady just introduced herself to you and you haven't even told her your name. I tensed up. I still didn't know if I could trust Toko. Part of me suspected I'd be better off if she knew as little about me as possible. On the other hand... And now we have another choice to make. We can either tell her our actual name, our given name, or we can make one up on the spot. Now, the narrator, main character, has expressed some apprehension about revealing too much, so for the sake of keeping things interesting, let's tell a little white lie. No. Not on the other hand. I had no clue who this girl was. The less she knew about me, the better. It's Jess. Cool. Nice to meet you, Jess. Nice to meet you too, Toko, I guess. Nice rhyme. You seem alright, Jess. I wish we were meeting under better circumstances. Yeah, me too. I could feel my body relaxing. It seemed like Toko didn't want to hurt me. But What was that earlier? Toko hadn't done anything besides make some bad jokes, and I was definitely about to dash across the room and attack her. Why would I do that? If we wanted to figure out what was going on, that question seemed as good a place as any. It seemed like as good a place to start as any. Hey, I'm gonna tell you something that'll sound kinda nuts. I think just about anything would be believable right now, yeah? Well, okay. I really wanted to stab you with that knife just now. Awkward silence. She didn't look very surprised. I continued. Believe me, it's not something I want to do to people very often. It's especially weird because I have no idea who you are. Why the hell would I want to kill you? She sighed, leaning against the wall with her head against her hands. Well, it's not like I'm a particularly trustworthy person from your perspective. For all you know, I could be the one that kidnapped you. We were kidnapped? Is that what happened? I'd say so. How else do two cute girls wind up in some creepy basement with splitting headaches? So wait, we're locked in? My eyes moved over to the room's only door for the first time. It looked pretty sturdy. Mind if I get up and check? Go ahead. I did before you woke up. It seems pretty solidly locked. I stood up and walked over to the door, making sure to steer clear of the knives in the corner. I'd glanced at them as I stood up and felt a weird, awful tightening in my chest. I had a feeling if I dwelled on them too long, I'd be back wanting to kill Toko for no reason, which is something I wanted to avoid. I pushed and pulled at the round doorknob, and sure enough, the door wasn't budging. Fuck. Yep, we're stuck together. You're awfully cavalier about all this, considering we're locked in some basement. I know how these stories tend to go, and it's not pretty. I use humor to cope with stressful situations. Try it. You could stand to chill a few degrees. Okay, knock knock. Who's there? The terrifying murderer that's gonna come in and slash us to bits any minute now. I don't think you're getting into the spirit of my suggestion. Shut up. I sat back down. This fucking sucked. What the hell was gonna happen to us? I sat and stewed. I didn't want to admit to myself, but I was scared out of my mind. I wanted to kill you too. Huh? I was waiting for you to come over here. The second you did, I was going to stab that thing right into your chest. She pointed at the corner where we tossed the blades. I looked over for just a second and felt my stomach churn, then quickly turned back at Toko. That's not normal for me either. What's going on? Let's review what we do know. We're trapped in a basement. Neither of us know how we got here, right? Right. Last thing I remember, I was crawling into bed in my apartment. I remember turning out the lamp in my dorm, laying my head on the pillow, and closing my eyes. Next thing I know, I woke up here with a pounding in my head, an unconscious girl, and a knife. My chest tightened. I wish she'd stopped mentioning the knives. So, your story's basically the same? Yeah, except I woke up to a smarmy, loudmouth British girl. She rolled her eyes and continued. Both of us, for no rational reason we know about, really wanted to murder each other. Yeah, I guess that's what it looks like. What on earth could make us want to do that? We paused and thought for a minute. It wasn't exactly a cheery thing to wonder about, but I had an idea. Maybe it's some kind of drug? Something they injected us with, or something in the air? I looked up and noticed several vents placed evenly on the wall just underneath the ceiling. I was going to say this place is haunted, but your thing makes sense too, I guess. I laughed dryly. Well, whatever it is, it seems to get worse if we look at those knives too much. Let's just stay away from them and try to stay calm. Toko was right, but how the hell were we supposed to stay calm in a situation like this? I was really getting scared now. We didn't have any idea what was going on. I zoned out for a minute or so, trying to focus on my breathing. Then Toko broke the silence. Hey, is that your bag? I looked where she was pointing at, just a few feet away from me. And sure enough, my school bag was sitting right there. I hadn't noticed it earlier while looking over the room. It was a cheap pack with my school's logo emblazoned on the side. I'd gotten it on orientation day and hadn't bothered to exchange it for something more my style. My eyes lit up. Was my cell phone still in the bag? I opened it up and looked through it, finding a number of useless knickknacks. Mostly blank notebook, a few mechanical pencils, a tube of pepper spray, a half-full bag of Cheez-Its, and there it was. I couldn't believe it. My cell was right there in the bag. It had power, too. What on earth? Had the kidnapper made a mistake? Surely they hadn't meant to leave my phone with me. I looked up from the bag. Toko was staring at me. Find anything, Jess? Okay. Well, maybe we'll talk about the fancy games that are on the phone. Toko looked pale. I didn't understand why. This was great news. Did you receive any messages? What was she talking about? Why would it matter if I'd gotten any texts? I'm going to try calling for help. I pulled up the dial pad and entered 911. I waited for a moment. Then a voice answered me. We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the number and try your call again. No. I typed it in again. Maybe I just entered it wrong somehow? I waited, and then... We're sorry. Your call cannot be completed as dialed. Please check the... God damn it! Fucking shit! I threw my phone back in the pack. Yeah, mine didn't work either. I zipped it up and put it down, rubbing my temples. I looked up and saw Toko eyeing the logo on my bag. Huh. I guess we go to the same university. Really? Huh. Weird that we haven't seen each other on campus. The small talk helped. It distracted me from the disappointment of not being able to call for help. It's not that weird, I think. There are something like 30,000 students in attendance. Are you an exchange student or something? No, I moved to the area 2 years ago. She paused, remembering something. You said your name's Jess? Yeah. I think there's a Jessica in my calc class this term. Is that you? I looked at the ground, frowning. No, I'm not taking any math courses right now. Oh, must be a different Jess then. Yeah, it's a pretty common name. I know of a few back in England. There was one who... I held onto the bag in my lap tightly as I looked up, wondering why she trailed off mid-sentence. She was staring above the door. I followed her gaze and gasped. Is that... a camera? Without thinking about it, I got up and walked over to the locked entrance, slinging my bag over my shoulder. I looked closely at the object over the door. It was definitely a camera. It was small, sleek, black, expensive-looking, and totally out of place in this grungy basement. It definitely looked like it had been put there recently. Someone's watching us. Suddenly, it all clicked. I knew what was going on. I knew why we were here. I glared into the camera lens, rage building. I turned back towards Toko. Don't you fucking get it? I could feel the hate burning inside me as it all came together. What? Someone kidnapped us. They pumped us full of drugs that make us want to kill each other, and now they're just watching. I took a step toward Toko. She shrank back from me as I did so. I'm not some movie star or politician's daughter. I don't know about you, but my parents haven't ever been part of the picture for a while now. If someone kidnapped me for ransom, I'm a pretty poor fucking choice. And if we just got kidnapped because someone wanted to murder us, why would they give us weapons? Why would we be itching to stab each other for no reason? I was almost yelling now. She didn't get it, which really fucking pissed me off for some reason. Please, calm down, Jess. Toko looked scared. I didn't particularly care. I held onto my bag tightly. Don't you get it? Someone wants to kill us. Someone wants us to kill each other so they can get off on it. We're the stars in some sick fuck's personal snuff film. I was furious. This was sick. This was so fucking sick. I looked down at Toko. She still looked scared. Pissed me off. Didn't she know I was scared out of my mind, too? Then I saw it. Her eyes flickered towards the corner where we threw the knives. Her body was tense. I hissed at her through gritted teeth. What? Are you gonna run over there and grab a knife? Are you gonna kill me? Are you gonna give them exactly what they want? I closed the distance between us and grabbed her collar, lifting her up off the floor. Because let me tell you one thing, I am not going down easy. A loud static was boring into my eardrums. It hurt like hell. I knew it was Toko's fault somehow. She looked down at the ground. She spoke, her words mangled and distorted by the static. I don't want to kill you. Want to calm, so talk. God, she pissed me off. I knew she was waiting for me to put her down so she could make a dash for the knives. She wouldn't get there, though. She was not gonna take me down. Please. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! She spoke again, her meek voice cutting through the distortion. Please, let's just talk. Why can't she just shut up? Doesn't she know how much trouble we're in? I felt the weight of the bag slung against my shoulder. I thought about the pepper spray. I'd realized I'd been thinking about the pepper spray since I first saw it. Oh dear. Looks like we've got a red option again. I don't think this is going to end happily for us in this instance either. I threw Toko to the ground. It obviously hurt. I could see tears welling in her eyes. Good. I unzipped the bag and reached inside it, but as I did, so did Toko. Whereas I did so, Toko darted away from me, much faster than I expected her to. In a split second, she was on her feet and running towards the knives. With a scream, I hurled myself at her. I aimed my shoulder square against her side and hit her dead on. The tackle slammed her against the wall a few feet away from me. She managed to stay on her feet, but the hit dazed her for a few moments, which was all the time I needed to pull the pepper spray out of my bag. Just as she regained her footing, I pointed the nozzle directly at her eyes and pressed hard on the top of the tube with my thumb. A jet of yellow liquid shot out and splattered against her face. Instantly, she screamed and fell to the ground, her eyes slamming shut against the pane. Snot drained out of her nose and she started coughing like crazy. She looked so fucking pathetic. I hated her so much. I kicked her in the ribs. The sound of her hacking coughs was distorted and intense. It melded with the static and bored into my skull like a drill. I had to make it stop. I tossed the pepper spray to the ground behind me and kicked her hard in the gut. She kept coughing. I grabbed her shoulders and shoved her to the ground. She jerked around and tried to get away, but the pain had weakened her. I managed to pin her underneath me, sitting on top of her with my knees on the ground on both sides of her stomach. She briefly opened her eyes and looked up at me, then shut them again, trying to blot out the burning pain. Tears and mucus covered her face. I realized I was crying too. I moved my hands from her shoulders to her neck, tightly wrapping my fingers around her throat. I held firm as she grabbed my wrist, trying to pull my hands away. Oh boy. Do we have to do it? We gotta do it. She clawed at my hands for a full minute as I strangled her. Then she went limp. I held on for another few minutes to make sure I'd finished her off. I let go and shook out my hands. They hurt from the tension and from Toko's scratching. I looked down at her body. Killing her felt good. So why did I still feel so unsatisfied? I considered my situation. I wasn't stupid. I knew I was being manipulated. The rage I'd taken out on Toko wasn't my own. It was put there by some unknown outside force. I felt certain that killing Toko, or vice versa, was what our mystery kidnappers intended. So what now? Will they let me go? Doubtful. Kill me? Very probable. Will they just leave me here to starve to death, or... I looked at Toko. She looked so peaceful. She didn't have to worry about what to do next. She was just... gone. I pushed at the side of her limp body with my foot and kneeled down, looking at her. Her eyelids were shut and stained yellow by the spray. All the panic in her face earlier had drained away. She looked totally calm as I sneered at her. You're so glad you're dead. There was no happy way out of the situation. They weren't going to let me go, and even if they did, I didn't know how I could live with this weight moving forward. I walked over to the corner of the room and picked up my knife. It felt weighty and solid in my hands. It felt good to hold it again. I stood up and looked behind me at the camera. I pressed the tip of my knife against my chest, ready to plunge it in. I understood now. It was never going to end any other way. Wait. There was one thing I could still control. If I was going to die for these people, I was going to give them precisely what they wanted. I could at least go all the way with it. I could at least put on a good show. So, what's more cinematic than burying a knife in your chest? What's gorier, scarier, bloodier? What's more painful, more exciting? How can I really draw this out for the sick fucks watching me? I knew the answer instantly. I lifted the knife and shoved it into my throat. Ow. Oh. Ugh. I'd fallen to the ground immediately. The pain was overwhelming. My vision was already tunneling in from the blood loss. I knew I'd pass out soon, and that'd be that. At least it'd be over soon. As I started to black out, I heard a metal unlatching sound from the door and a slow creak as it pushed open. An indistinct figure stood in the entryway. I couldn't make out what they looked like, but I knew they were probably the person who kidnapped us. As I tried to squint and see who they might be, my vision blacked out completely. I let my body go limp. I realized I felt nothing about this person, and in the doorway, I felt nothing about Toko, and I felt nothing about me or my choices. What happened, happened. There was nothing I could do to change it now. I only had one more thought before losing consciousness. At least I put on a good show. So that brings us to the voyeur, and quite thematically appropriate. So if we go over to the event gallery, we'll get some commentary on this ending as well. Ha! Looks like she won't get to see Toko's true self after all, whatever the hell that means. I can't imagine she's displeased, though. That other one put on quite the show. Okay, so that's going to do it for episode 2 of the Her Lullaby Let's Read. I hope you come back for episode 3, and we will hopefully get a somewhat less messy ending. Or we can at least attempt to. Who knows when you're dealing with something like this. Alright, Poncho Smith signing off.